the time for the question and answer part of the webcast. So a reminder to you out there is the way to participate in the Q&A is to type your question into the Q&A widget to the right side of the slide area window, and then simply click the submit button. We do have some questions in. We have, to you, John, is this technology applicable for 3/8 inch tube only?
No, the technology that, 3/8 inch or 9.52 millimeter tubes are very common especially in North America, and it's applicable to any tube diameter, but it's been applied mostly to the conventional 3/8 inch tube. But most of the work has been done down to 5, and as you saw, 4, even 3 millimeter tubes. But typically, so far, what we've seen in the industry is this being applied mostly to the 3/8 or 9.52 millimeter tubes.
Is the MicroGroove the same as the inner groove design? I'm not quite sure what that really means, but is there a difference between MicroGroove and other groovings?
MicroGroove is a general name that's given to smaller diameter copper tubes with internal enhancement. So it's fairly synonymous. MicroGroove and inner groove just refer to the fact that the tube has internal enhancements.
Okay, thank you. What is the recommendation for tube thickness for R410A condenser coil?
Well, the best place to get that answer would be from the tube supplier, but typically I think we see tube thicknesses around a little more than maybe 0.2 millimeters in a 5 millimeter tube, and that's down considerably from the 0.28 that you might see in a 9.52 millimeter tube.
Okay. There's still an opportunity to write your questions into the Q&A box. So if you have a question in mind, please feel free to do that. Obviously, we've got the website for further reference, and we would be happy to take contact through the website if you wanted to speak to an expert. The next question on the list is, who supplies small diameter MicroGroove tubes, and where can I buy them?
Well, small diameter tubes are currently in production, and they're being shipped to a number of major manufacturers worldwide. All the tube manufacturers in North America and the EU have the capability, and they also have the desire to provide small diameter tube when their customers require it. So I would advise consulting your current supply base for specific information that would be related to the availability and also pricing. Okay.
And if we go to the website, there's an opportunity to see a supplier directory there. Okay, I have another question in. Does refrigerant type alter the MicroGroove design, or are they standard for all types?
Again, that would best be answered by the tube supplier, but it's going to depend on the pressure that the refrigerant requires, the operation pressure, and that will in turn dictate how much tube thickness is going to be required at a particular diameter.
I think we're at the point of just one or two more questions. So if you have a question in mind, please submit it in the next minute or two. I think going through here, is it possible to use MicroGroove in large commercial units, taking into account the problem of pressure drops? Large commercial referring to chillers, external units.
Sure. It is possible to use smaller diameter MicroGroove tubes in larger commercial units. And it's going to depend, as I mentioned, you can add paths. There are a number of things that the designer or the heat exchanger can do to handle the pressure drops. And you could contact the International Copper Association separately from this, and we could help direct you to people that would help you with your specific project.
Okay, I think I've got a follow-up question. Is it suitable for larger tonnage capacity units? This came from Zemil Air Conditioning.
Yes, it would also be suitable for larger tonnage air conditioning units, and the same factors that I just mentioned would apply to that as well.
Okay. Which is the maximum operating pressure?
I don't know that that's really been established yet. There seems to be a tube for every pressure that we've encountered so far. So at the moment, I don't know that there's a maximum. And again, if you've got a specific project in mind, I would encourage you to direct that either to the tube supplier themselves or to us, and we can help you get in contact with people that'll match up the correct tube and tube diameter for that pressure and application.
I've got a question because, and I think the author was a bit unsure whether it had been covered in the slides, but he was saying, has this been used with CO2 systems?
Yes, I believe it has, and it's certainly capable of that. The smaller diameter tubes can handle higher pressures with thinner walls than larger diameter tubes. So it's actually a very good candidate for CO2 systems because of their higher pressures. It would handle those pressures with less material.
Okay, there's a further question here. What about the oil? What is the effect of the grooves?
The oil does have an effect on heat transfer, and there's actually a paper on our microgroove.net website that addresses that. But it does decrease the heat transfer, and that has more to do, I think, with the oil being in the refrigerant than it does with anything specific with the grooves.
Okay. I've got one question here. Is it possible to have the presentation slides afterwards? Yeah, at the end of the presentation, I will mention how you can get the presentations, and if you have a problem, you can always drop an email to the website, and we'll happily sort that out with you. I've got a question here. Can MicroGroove tube compete on a cost level with MPE aluminium tube?
So far, we believe it can, yes.
Yeah, I think it's for those guys that know the true costs to go away, work them out, recognize that there's other benefits from knowing about copper, having experience with copper, and not having to change the factory footprint too much. But certainly, we wouldn't be in the game if we didn't think we had a good chance. So,
absolutely,
we welcome any opportunity to put that one to test. Okay, we're getting, I think, quite close to the end of our time, and also to I've just got another question in here, but one question stands back. Is the fin geometry, space, etc., a factor in influencing the heat transfer?
Without a doubt, fin, all the factors that go into a fin, the spacing, the louvers, the angles of the louvers, those all influence the heat transfer capacity of the coil. So that works in conjunction with the tube diameters, and the spacing of the tubes.
Okay. All right. I think I've pretty much covered them all now. We had one on supply earlier, I believe. What kind of manufacturing changes, if any, might be required for smaller diameter tubes?
Well, the manufacturing process for small diameter copper tubes is the exact same process that's been used in our industry for a long time, and it's been used successfully. So it's a process that just about everyone is familiar with, and companies planning to switch to smaller diameter copper tubes, they'll be able to use all their existing production equipment with very minor modifications to the tube expansion equipment. And they'll still be able to supply the market with the same durable copper tube products that they always did, but they'll use less material and they'll be more efficient because of the smaller diameter copper tubes.
Okay. I've got a quick one here. How can we manage the extra pressure drop from small tubes?
Well, the higher pressure drop is easily managed with adding either more paths, and that's probably the primary way to handle that. The addition of more paths usually takes care of the pressure drop. You might have to increase the number of tubes as well.
Okay. I mean, getting a couple of specific questions here that I think probably need an expert advice. How should we approach, or how should one of the attendees approach getting further information, do you think?
Probably the best way to start would be to drop an email at the microgroove.net website, and as you mentioned earlier, Nigel, we would respond to that as quickly as we could.
Okay. I think we've got a series of questions now in front of us. Some of these are repeats of previous ones, but where if you've left your details and a question, we will certainly try to get back to you after the event and satisfy your answers. And that would also lead to the fact that next week we also have on the 22nd a further webinar which has some more details and some more information, is a further update of the information you got here today. Okay, I think I've probably got a minute left, and I'll have a quick look through here for additional questions. So, yeah, they've pretty much been covered before. We had the question on what was the tube thickness, I believe?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And all right. So I think if there's any pressing questions that you don't feel have been answered, please go to the Q&A section now, put them into the list. And although we won't be able to answer them now because I think the session is drawing to a close, we will be happy to follow up with those later. So it's for me to now say thank you to John, particularly, but thank you to everybody that's attended this seminar on MicroGroove Advantage, achieving the higher energy efficiency with smaller diameter tubes. Within 48 hours, this presentation will be available on demand. You will be able to receive an email once it is available. On behalf of all of us here, including John, I would like to thank you for attending. I'm Nigel Cottton, and I'd like to thank you for your time and wish you a very pleasant day. Thank you.